back to my story. When the shaman from the first camp that I came to brought in many other shamans that do specialities, some are doctors, some work on internal organs. They're just amazing, absolutely amazing. Within 3 or 4 days of my husband having this intense work, I finally had my husband back. He was absolutely incredible. We laughed, we cried, we sang, we went for walks in the jungle, which was safe, and spent so much loving time together. And that was just cuddling and holding hands and just being the way that we used to be. And that was the most precious gift that anyone could give us at that time. We had the most amazing, incredible, wonderful time. And then we had to head back to the UK. I was sad, but I knew that it had to happen. And that is the first time that Alex and I met Medardo. I thought I had something on my shoulder, and it's not. And instantly, I just fell in love with this guy. Metaphorically speaking, of course. His energy, his kindness, his gentleness. This man has a pure heart and a pure soul. And he's so quiet. He thinks a lot. And when you know that when he's thinking a lot, he is communicating elsewhere. But the care that they give to me is unbelievable. And that's why I know that when I come here, I am so safe in all aspects. It was time for us to leave the jungle. And we had our long flight home. And we got home and everything was great. He was happy, he was whistling and singing, and we had ducks and we had chickens and we had wild cats and all sorts of different things where we lived. We had a goose, we had ducks, we had a dog, a cat, and I think we had 3 or 4 feral cats as well, but you know, they were all friendly. And we would open the door in the morning to let the dog out, to let her have a pee or maybe to feed her. And in the troops would come, we were talking 20 rescue chickens, 2 ducks and a goose would all come in and share the food with the cat. That's how laid back we were. And the animals reflected that. None of us were stressed out. None of us, we were just happy-go-lucky people who worked hard. It was time for my beloved Alex to go back to work. And, he managed. Things were going good. My husband, Alex, was a senior prison officer in Berlin. For anyone that doesn't know that, it's a prison in Glasgow. And it's very notorious. And he was doing well. And people were just saying how well he looked and how much stronger and healthier he was. And within a week to 10 days, he was actually going through one of the huge bolted doors, and I think it got stuck, and someone from the other side was trying to open it, and I think there was a few people, gave it such a massive jolt that it jolted him so hard on the other side, and things just went downhill from there. My husband had cancer. He had a very specific cancer. It's called a pancreas tumour. And it actually was on top of his lung, which meant it was inoperable. We just couldn't do anything for him. So this is quite hard. It was a long time ago, but it's hard trying to get everything in place, but people may understand. At that point, I didn't really know what was wrong with him. Unfortunately, I did. I was told by Spirit that that's what it was, but that I had not to say anything to him because he had to get this. It was his journey, basically, that he just had to do the work. That's all I can say. He had to do the work. And weeks would go by and I could see him deteriorating with the pain. It was so intense. So I phoned up the GP and I said, I want him to have some kind of scan. And I was told that I was not his patient and that I should not be requesting for other patients. So I had a bit of an argument with this doctor and he just never took it any further. So then I sat and spoke to Alex and I said, you need to go and see them. And he went in and they said, trapped nerve. Sent him home. Then he went back again because it was so intense. And they came up with some other cock and bull story about trapped nerves and joints and all sorts of things. So by the time this had happened, I basically lost the plot and demanded that they get something done about it. They just kind of went, it's just a trapped nerve. They never even examined him. They did not examine him. He went in, he was told that when he came out because, you know, doctors know best. No, they don't. Not in my opinion. And that is only my opinion. They don't know what's best. I then said to him, like, let's write a letter to your consultant that he was under years ago. He was in a bad car crash and he had winged his scapula and it never went back to the normal position. I managed to persuade him gently to write this letter. He did. It got sent to the hospital. He did get a reply back saying that his consultant had actually retired. So they would get him seen by the consultant that had taken over for him. I think this part has got too much information in it. I think I will probably remake this video because I don't know. I'll think about it. Anyway, we waited a few weeks, got a consultant, drove through to, it was Glasgow. He went for some x-rays and other bits and pieces and we were told that we had to wait. For me that was normal, you know, wait. They check the x-ray to see, you know, if they see anything and then they send you home. That's how they used to do it. I don't know how they do it now. However, we sat for maybe 3 hours. 3 hours in a hospital. Anyway, we were told that we had to follow the nurse into another room, which was quite a distance away from where we were. We sat in this room and there was the consultant and there was I think it was a junior or someone that was learning, and they asked if we had any problems. We thought absolutely not, everybody has to learn. And then the words came, I'm really sorry, but you have a shadow on your lung, not in your lung. And even although I knew I broke at that point, which not only surprised me, but it surprised Alex as well. Because out of the two of us, I was possibly... He was a very strong man, don't get me wrong. But I was even stronger. And he was so calm. And I could not understand why he was so calm. And I said, no, he doesn't... I already knew, but I was in so much shock and disbelief that I requested to see his x-ray, because by seeing his x-ray I would know straight away whether it was his or not. That's fight or flight. That's fight or flight. You know, that was denial. And that's just basically how it went. However, they brought up the x-ray, put it on. It was definitely his. He saw his wing scapula and we knew that it was his. It was on his left side. The side that had been severely damaged in the car crash. That was a lot to take on board. Our previous plans were to go to the hospital, get the x-ray and then go to IKEA for a walk around, see if there was anything nice, have some coffee. So we just kind of sat and looked at one another and he said, come on, let's go to IKEA. As calm can be. Oh, there's a chainsaw again. They're clearing some woodland to, I think, build more structures but this is in this camp. But all the wood that's taken from the trees is used. It's not just thrown away and discarded. Everything is reused. So we went to IKEA. We just wandered around and didn't really say anything to each other. I think we were both in shock. And I think the reality of what he'd been told had actually hit home. We then decided to go for coffee or donuts or whatever it was that you get in IKEA. And we sat there and we just looked at each other across the table and just, there was nothing. There was no words. The emotions were completely not gone, but it's hard. But anyone that's been there, which I'm sure a lot of you have, you may understand that, because at that point, that is the first stages of grieving. And I truly believe that. Not many people will, and that's fine. We're all allowed to have our own opinion, but for me, that was the first stage of a grieving process for me. And having to accept the fact that this is what this was. And when I saw it on the screen, I knew that there was no chance of him having that removed. By the way, it was wrapped around his lung, but also it was going into his spine. It was already in his lymph. It was already in his liver. And he basically was stage 4. But being that type of man, he just, it'll go away. He didn't like doctors, so a lot of that was his own responsibility to have gone and get it checked out. And I was continually saying, please just get it checked out, because I knew that he needed some kind of x-ray or scan or to actually see if there was anything there, which again, I already knew there was. I think he cracked a joke. And my husband was a jokester, he really was. He made everybody laugh at some of the things he said. Magnificent chef, unbelievable the food that he could create. So the two of us started laughing and just looked at each other and said, what do we do now? And I said to him, no matter what you choose to do, I will support you 100%. I made that promise and I had to stick with that promise. I'm a great believer in natural stuff. Foods, plants. I wouldn't be here otherwise, would I? So I decided that his diet needed to be changed, and I spoke to him about this and he was not happy at all. Alex, my lovely, had a very, very, very sweet tooth. And for me, and everybody has their own way of thinking, sugar is the source that the cancer depends upon. It feeds from sugars. So I decided to do a little bit of research on my own with regards to, I mean, I know fruits have got natural sugars in them, some higher content than others. So I decided to do some research and I came up with a plan. I had put him on to, hated this stuff. He said it was his green yuck. But because I was doing this with him, or for him, I decided that I would do it with him as well. Whatever he ate, I would eat. Whatever he drank, in the way of the juices, I would also drink. He hated it. He was a steak and chicken, that kind of man. He still did have some of that stuff, but less. Simply because too much of that was not good for him. Maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong, who knows? Do we have the answer? No, we don't. It's trial and error. But if you love someone as much as I love my husband, and I still do and I always will, is to do the best for them. I started him on all these different herbs and different remedies and all sorts of things. And he was stage 4, and the doctor had came by about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, somewhat, 6 months maybe, I don't know, can't remember, after the initial diagnosis. And he came in. Now, my husband smoked, and he said, what's the point of giving up now? And he was right. If it was a comfort to him, then it was a comfort to him. But because the cancer had actually damaged part of the nervous system in his left hand, he smoked roll-ups sometimes and ordinary cigarettes, but he went off the ordinary ones and wanted roll-ups. And the only way he could have a cigarette was for me to roll it. I had no idea how to roll a cigarette at that time, none whatsoever, hadn't a clue. So I thought I'll buy him one of these little machines that you put the tobacco in, put paper in and all that guff. So I got one, and I said, look, I've got you this, no problem now. No problem now. I would put the paper upside down, I would forget to put the tobacco in it. So it took me quite a few goes to actually get to grips with how these things work. That being said, he eventually did stop smoking because he wasn't well enough. However, we still had one main problem, and that was getting on top of his pain. His pain was past a level 10. It would be somewhere in the region of about a 20. Now, that's how strong a man he was. But he was beginning to struggle really, really badly. And just by chance, early one morning, I found him sitting in the living room. And I sat with him and I said to him, what's the matter, can't you sleep? And he just said about the pain and that he'd had enough. He couldn't take any more, and he was finished, basically. He was finished. Now, where we lived was out in the country, but there was a single track line for the train, and that was on a bridge. And this is how desperate this man was. Strong, independent, fun-loving man. He had made the decision to drive himself to the bridge and throw himself in front of a train because the pain was so incredible. He couldn't take it anymore. That was hard. That was really hard to deal with. For both of us. It wasn't just about me, it was both of us that were going through this together. Although his was, the rain's back on, just in case you're wondering. The pain was so incredibly intense. I never felt his pain, but I saw his pain, and that broke my heart because I felt as though I was failing him. But I wasn't feeling him. I was there, I was his strength, I was his person that just wouldn't stop. If I didn't agree with something, then I would make a point. So I got to that point, so I phoned a hospice and basically told them what was happening. I needed somebody to help him with his pain levels because they were unmanageable, and the stuff that they were giving him, we're not even touching it. And this is where it got a bit funny, actually. Well, it didn't, it wasn't. It was sad, but it ended up quite funny. I told them the story and they said, we don't have anywhere and you have to come through the GP. And I said, my GP's rubbish. He's not supporting them at all. Giving them paracetamol and something else, I can't remember what it was, but that's not going to help anything, is it? With that level of pain. It just so happened that the following day they had an open day. Why don't you bring him along? And I thought, great, I'll do that. And at the time my daughter was visiting, so I said to him, we're going to go and visit it, see what it's like, you know, get a feel for it. And he was fine about it. Within half an hour of making that phone call, they called me back and said, just in case, pack a bag. Okay. So I had packed this bag, unbeknown to him, I didn't want him to know, because at that point he was in so much pain. He was disorientated and he couldn't understand a lot of things sometimes. So we got there and it looked like a nice place. A doctor came in, had a look at him, had a chat with him. And my husband was very smart. Even in that stage, he knew how to play the game. And all the answers he was giving them were the correct answers, because that's what they wanted to hear. He said, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me, how's your pain? Oh, it's fine, it's great, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the doctor turned around and said to me, he's fine, he's managing well. And the sister that was in the room with us saw the look on my face, and she came up to me and she took me out the room and she said, let's have a cup of tea. And I just broke down. I said, how can they say that? And she said, fine, the doctor was just new. She said, but I'm going to get a senior to have a look at him. And they did. And within the next 10 minutes, the senior had said, why don't we just keep you overnight tonight and check you out and see if we can get anything to help your pain. Oh, but he was fine, he wasn't having it. And then he said, I don't have a bag, I don't have anything. And they said, well, we don't have a proper room for you at the moment, but we'll have a side room. That would be okay for you. He kept saying, I don't have a bag, I'll come back tomorrow. But if I had taken him home, he wouldn't have come back tomorrow. And I said, actually, I've got a bag here for you. They asked me to pack it just in case. And at that point, I knew what was going to happen. He completely ignored me and was so angry with me. He never got angry. That they took him and showed him where he would stay that night, and if they thought that they needed to keep him a little bit longer, they showed him into another room, that's where they would take him. Beautiful room, absolute state of the art, fantastic, comfortable. What else do you need? But it was time for myself and my daughter to leave, and he walked to the car with us. He gave my daughter a kiss and a cuddle and told her that he loved her, and completely ignored me. That was how angry he was. I drove home, my daughter went home, either that day or the following day, I can't remember, and I sat in the house for about 3 days just crying, thinking, what have I done? Why did I do this? But this was the right thing. So I was questioning myself continuously, as we all do. And then I got a phone call from the Marie Curie nurse, who are fabulous nurses, by the way. And she said, have you seen him? Or I said, no, he won't speak to me. He wants nothing to do with me. I don't know what to do. She said, I'm passing your house in about half an hour. Pack some stuff that he would like in a bag, and I'm taking you up there. That scared the shit out of me, because I didn't know what I was going to experience. I didn't know what to think. However, off I went, and I was really quite scared of the whole. I didn't want to fall out with him. I didn't want to see him hurting. However, when I went in, the minister wanted to have a word with me, and I thought, why does he want to speak to me? But he was the counsellor as well as other things. And he said, you know, he's had many conversations with Alex, and he can see right through what he's doing, and what I have done was the right thing. He may be angry with you at the moment, but he has to be angry with someone, and he has to take it out on someone, and because you are his closest, then he's going to do it to you. They gave me half an hour, and if I felt half an hour was too much, then they would come in and get me. Very gingerly I walked down the corridor to his room. I walked inside, and the first thing he done was looked at me and looked away. Wasn't interested. I tried to explain to him why this had been done, why I felt that this was so important. Because I loved him and I didn't want to see him in pain, and he was too important to me, and so many things. Looked at me and said, "What's in the bag?" I opened it up and it was all the things that he loved. He loved music, so I took him up his, I don't know, could have been his MP3 player, I can't remember what it was called. And I said to him, "I'm sorry, the last thing I wanted to do was hurt you." But you know, within 24 hours of him being in the hospice, he had his pain under control. Within 24 hours. He was on 2 syringe drivers, one either side, and they were pumping the exact amount of morphine and whatever else was in that concoction. And he had no more pain. He had no more pain. And he slowly came round to the fact that I had done it for all the right reasons and not for selfish reasons. We went for a walk in the gardens and he said he understood why I had done what I had done. And we were friends again. That's the best gift he could have given to me at that time. I think I'm going to stop this here right now because I've completely gone off track. Or will I? I'm not usually indecisive. It's just the fogginess in my head at the minute.